Welcome to episode 85.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Ready to take a vacay, but you just don't have the time to plan? Let the agents at 3D Travel Company pamper you and take care of all the little details. Find us at www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button on the left-hand side. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips, booked and traveled by 2017. Hurry and book today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know we have launched a Patreon page. You can find us at www.patreon.com/whodidthatvoice. What is Patreon, you say? Well, it's a lot like a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign that allows you to help support us on a monthly basis. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support the show and earn amazing perks. Help us out today and join the Who Did That Voice family in a new way. Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest has voiced Grandpa Max on the 2016 reboot of Ben 10.
That's a really big water slide. Why are you staring at me?
Grandpa Max has agreed to test out the epic shiny water slide.
With the help of Overflow!
Oh, wait, but I don't need any.
Today's special guest also got the opportunity to voice Iron Man on Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes.
Please come right in, though you know this is a very high-tech building. We have things called doors. So, welcome to Stark Enterprises.
We're ready this time, Spooky!
Okay, look. 1, I'm not a ghost. 2, if you want to fight, may I suggest we save the day first?
Iron Man, I presume.
Welcome to Stark Enterprises.
Our special guest is no stranger to working on Marvel projects, as he also got the chance to voice Professor X on X-Men Evolution.
Thanks to you all, we have averted catastrophe. It was not without its price, however. But steel is forged through fire, and like it, we have been made stronger.
Today's special guest has had some amazing opportunities, and this is one of my absolute favorite. He got the chance to voice Megatron on Beast Wars, one of my absolute favorite Transformer renditions. I hope you enjoy.
We Predacons have never abandoned our rightful goal of galactic conquest. Lo, we have merely been waiting for the right moment to strike. Predacons, terrorize! Megatron, terrorize!
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today I am so excited to be bringing you an interview with David Kaye. David, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
it. Sorry, I had to do something entertaining there.
I love it.
I wasn't entertaining at all, but I thought, what the hell?
Well, man, you have an amazing voice, David. It's so booming, and you play such a multitude of characters. We're going to dive into a chunk of them, but you've done so many. It's just unbelievably amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're
I'm glad I found
welcome.
I always tell people I'm glad I found something because coming out of high school looked a little thin. You know, I did start in radio though. I mean, that was my first gig, so that was sort of where things began.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, the very first thing, speaking of where you first began, one of the things we love to do is get to know our guest. And tell me about little David Kaye, the young boy that grew into the man he became, and how did he get into acting?
Wow. There is a cassette. I was visiting my folks in July back in Canada, and my mom was going through all this stuff, and there's a whole box of, comics and thing and a lot of different cassette tapes.
Wow. Remember those cassette tapes? Back in my day, we had cassette tapes.
Hard to believe.
I know.
But yeah, so we went through all of them, and it was really entertaining because you get to hear family members who are no longer with us.
Yeah.
And there is a cassette there of me, and I believe I was 7.
Wow.
7 or 8, and it was me mimicking. Santa Claus brought me a little cassette recorder. I remember using the hell out of it and bugging everyone around, voice on tape, which I'm glad I did because it's great memories and hearing people when they were younger. But there was me recording a local radio station at the time in my hometown where I grew up in Peterborough, Ontario, Canada. It was a radio station called CKPT. They no longer exist, and they were the worst call letters in the world. I mean, you couldn't make them sound cool if you tried.
Yeah.
It just didn't, But I would listen to the station, and the music would be on, and I think it was an old song. I can't remember. I remember Delta Dawn. What's that flower you have on? In the sky. It's like an old '70s song, and then I would come in. I'd turn the announcer on, and it was me going, "This is David. I am on CKPT," and I was mimicking a DJ, and I was 7.
Wow.
And so fast forward to I was 17, 10 years later, and I was about to turn 18. I did get a job doing overnight weekends on that station. I was working in a sports pro shop in the local YMCA, and the morning man from that station, he was a big celebrity in town at that time, John Mariusine. And when we used to see John, you're like, "Oh my God, that's John Mariusine. Oh my God, hey, it's John Marius." Now, I don't know. But he was the big dude in town, and he used to come into the pro shop and buy squash balls, and that's how I got into the sport of squash. I mean, it's a real niche sport, but that's how I sort of get into that.
Nice.
And talking to John, and it basically, I was always enthralled with the industry, and I did some volunteering in high school at the local cable outlet, doing the camera work and stuff like that. Just to, I really enjoyed it. I like the smell of the control room. There's a certain smell when you go into a control room or a television station. It's that electronic sort of dusty sort of, you know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever sort of, there's that thing. It's like, and as a stage actor, it's that thing when you walk on stage, you go, "Ah, yes, I am home." It's that thing. And he invited me to come down to the station and meet Rick Johnson, the local program director. And I met Rick, and then they put me in a room and recorded me. Doing, I don't know what I did. I think it was like a fake commercial, or I read some copy or something. And literally, I think maybe 2 months later, they wanted me to come in and train for the overnight job on the weekends. And that's how it happened, man. That's how the whole thing started right there. It's my love for that business, and the voices came after.
Well, that's fantastic, man. So started at 7, and then really started at 17, 10 years later, and then just blossomed from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess blossom is an okay word. I mean, I still think I'm blossoming, but there's that old career thing that you may have heard people say, where, who's David Kaye? Get me David Kaye. Get me someone who sounds like David Kaye. Who's David Kaye? So there's I'm still in that. I'm still literally who's David Kaye. Get me David Kaye. I haven't yet got to the point where get me someone who sounds like David Kaye. So I guess that's a good thing. My career, even at at 52, it still seems to be going up. So I'm thrilled. I'm lucky, very fortunate. I'm just there. We are.
Absolutely. Well, you've done, I really am glad we got to dive into your background, because when we get to know someone's past, we really get to know, kind of where their beginnings kind of started them and got them, because of that. So thank you so much for diving into your past.
Of course.
Well, the very first thing we're going to talk about of some of your voiceover projects beyond radio was when you played Megatron on Beast Wars.
Mm-hmm. I should preface that by saying to start in animation. I should give a quick little thing just to.
Sure. Yeah, do that.
I was doing the Morning Zoo stuff, and when the Morning Zoo format was a big deal in Vancouver at the time, and Deke Animation was doing a lot of projects, and animation was blossoming up in Vancouver, and they were casting for G.I. Joe, and I remember, and I took this commercial modeling course. My agent, great guy, great friend, Ross Rhodes at the time, he was working at this agency. It was sort of a modeling / commercial agency. It was one of these modeling agencies where you have one eye in the middle of your head. Well, my gosh, you could be a model. You should, spend some money and get your pictures. Oh my God. And so I thought, well, I was doing morning, so I was kind of bored and had nothing to do the rest of the day. I signed up for this commercial modeling course. I said, what the hell, whatever. And there was the commercial component of it was what I really enjoyed in class. We learned how to, learn to read a line or memorize lines and do a commercial. And Ross offered to represent me at this fledgling agency right at the very beginning. I said, yeah, sure, man, whatever. I had no idea really what any of it was and what I was doing. I said, yeah, sure, you're my agent. Great. And I think the first or second audition I got was for this. He called up and said, so, do you do voices? I go, yeah, sure. He said, well, the G.I. Joe is looking for a cat. I go, G.I. Joe, like the cartoon? Because I collected all the toys. I mean, I had the big dolls, the Migos.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, man, that's cool, sure. And I really didn't expect anything. And I went in and read for a few characters, and one was General Hawk. And I got a call back, and I was about 6 weeks later, and I was skiing on a local mountain, and I was heading down the slopes. It was an afternoon on a weekend. So I skied in the morning, and I was coming down, realized I had no car keys. I couldn't get into my car, and I had to go across the bridge, across town. It was, 40 minutes to get there, and I was one of the last, I think, people they were seeing that day, and it was getting real iffy.
Yeah.
And literally within 10 minutes, somebody said, what's your keys look like? I said, well, they're glow in the dark yellow. The keys. So, oh, he said, well, actually, they're coming down in the gondola right now. Someone's found them on the mountain. I go, so, divine intervention. Who knows? Whatever the hell, was looking out for me that day. Someone found him and put him in the gondola, and I grabbed him, and I made it the audition just in time, and it was General Hawk, and they cast me in it. Oh, so wow. That's how the animation started. That was 89.
Dude,
89.
That's epic.
So pretty crazy stuff, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. Great story. Great story.
And it's and so that's where the voices. And then fast forward 4 years later, it was maybe 3 years later, they were casting for Transformers. Yeah. Now, I never grew up with Transformers. I grew up with the Flintstones, and Gazoo, and characters like that. And with some of the other characters, the early cartoons. I loved the Pink Panther.
Oh yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff I was into. And there was Rocket Robin Hood up in Canada. I don't know if you guys got that down here or not.
I don't think I've seen that one or heard of it.
It was really horribly badly drawn cartoon, but it was a big deal. And it's different stuff like that. I grew up, and I just sort of, I fell in love with it, and I don't really know why I fell in love with it. And it wasn't until many years later I realized that that's why, because I'm doing the cartoon stuff. And then so the Transformers comes around, and I didn't have any preconceived notions. I had no idea what anyone sounded like, and there was a giant bunch of pages that had drawings of the characters, sketches basically, pretty cool stuff. And a whole backstory on each character, the relationship with each other, the whole synopsis. I mean, it was like, it was too much. I was going, it was like, oh my God, is this like homework? Oh, yeah. I thought I was doing cartoon voices. I don't do homework. And I thought, well, I'll try it for the main guys. So I went out for Optimus and Megatron and sort of forget everybody else. I don't know. And
that's funny.
I remember I was clueless as to sort of how to prepare. I'd done some on-camera stuff. I started to do on-camera stuff at the time, and I had an idea. But really, there were some characters I'll go into an audition for, and I'll read for here at the studio at home, and I'll just start talking. And I'll start with like the description of the character, like, he's between 70 and 80, and so he's old and he's English, or he's fatter and he's much heavier, or he's very thin, whatever. I'll just kind of create something from that description, and then start into the dialogue and see if anything if I like it or not. Megatron, I remember I had no clue. I literally was palm sweating, and I walked in. There's all kinds of people in there, and I had no clue as to what I was going to do, and until I opened my mouth. And some people have heard me say this many times before, but I sort of had this idea of what if Anthony Hopkins and Sean Connery and a lizard had a baby? What would that be? And so I sort of came up with this, excellent, this sort of thing, this excellent. And I had a bit of a lisp and a bit of a thing. And then I could see them behind the glass. And what I call them now is that lemur moment where they all kind of pop up, their heads turn back and forth and look. And so they seemed interested. So I did it a few more times, and they were kind of laughing, and I didn't really. I'm young at this, right? I had no idea, and then they asked me to read for Optimus. So I did that, the hero thing and whatever. I can't remember what I did. Probably not that far off from what I did from Optimus Prime and animated, but maybe a little deeper or something. But I ended up getting cast as Megatron, and I didn't have. I think it was good that I didn't see the original, because I didn't have any. I didn't really have. I wasn't thinking of anything going in. I kind of had an open mind, and so that's how that happened.
That's epic.
Yeah. That's how that all started for me.
I love that Anthony Hopkins and Sean Connery mixed with a lizard. That was funny.
Yeah. Sometimes, you sort of, your brain is amazing. It kind of goes, well, try this and this and this and see if that works. Cause I'm panicking.
Well,
I got nothing right now. I'm going to try this.
It's very, it's funny because of not coming from a Star Wars or a Transformers background. It's kind of esque of what we know of Megatron, but it was totally different and unique. But it still had his essence, and it's so cool that you were able to grasp that without any preconception of the character.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, and sometimes you have to work at it. It just depends on the moment.
Absolutely.
Really.
Well, you kind of mentioned you have played Optimus Prime as well in some other versions. I believe it was called what was that version called? I can't remember.
It's a Transformers animated. That was animated. In 2007, 2009, I think it was 2010. Yeah, Optimus Prime is the first. I'd played a lot of bad characters.
Yeah.
In the past, and so. Being being Megatron for quite a while when Sue Blue was directing that series as well here in Los Angeles. And that was about the time we were beginning to immigrate down. And I was just on an airplane all the time and too much. And I was almost cast in some other series at the time. And I thought, okay, I better bring this up to my wife. And of course, my other side of my business is a lot of promo and trailer and commercial. I mean, it's a big part of what I do as well. So the animation thing is like it takes up 4 to 6 hours it's like a golf round, not that I golf, but I'm just saying it's it takes up time. So when I have I'm on call during the week, every hour of every day mostly. For trailers and promos and things can happen at any moment, and they do.
Yeah.
So to block off 4 hours for a show, either 9 to 1 or 2 to 6 are the normal operating hours of a show when you're recording. It was a bit of a juggling thing. So and then throw commuting from Vancouver to Los Angeles in that and catching airplanes.
Good Lord.
And I did that for almost like literally shy of just 10 years, just like 2 months shy of 10 years. I did that.
Wow.
And it was when I was doing the Optimus role, Tara Strong was the one who said, "What are you doing? Why aren't you living here?" And she seemed angry at me. She said, "Well, move here." She got mad. So I went back and brought that subject up with my wife, and that seemed to go well. The kids took it a little more difficult because they were born there, but now we're all U.S. citizens and everyone's happy, and it was the greatest move ever for me in my career, and so we're all doing great, and we owe this country a lot. It's given me great opportunities in my family, so that's where we are present day.
Well, that's awesome. A great story for the land of opportunity.
Yes. It still is, it still is.
Yeah.
Still is.
Well, besides playing Megatron for Beast Wars, you actually played Megatron and Galvatron on Transformers Armada and Energon. And my good buddy Matt Hill was on that show too. So
Matt Hill. Yeah. How's Matty doing?
He's doing well.
We always joke about Matt Hill. So, when Matt turns when he's like 70 or 80, he'll be like, he'll be like this, the same person he was.
You guys want to race in my wheelchair? I can take you out of my wheelchair. Come on, let's go. I'll race you across the country. Come on, you and me.
Your Matt Hill kind of sounds like Quagmire from Family Guy.
It does, a little bit. Get it. Sit in my lap. We're gonna go ride in the wheelchair. I'm Matt Hill.
Matty is a good man. He's been a good friend of mine since we met and did an interview and aired it last Christmas. But he's a great guy. I love him to death. But it's just amazing that you've been a part of so many great series and gotten to play villains and heroes. And you kind of mentioned commercial work. Speaking of that, this is a commercial within a movie where you did the UDF commercial for Edge of Tomorrow, which was with Tom Cruise.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Futuristic show, futuristic soldiers, kind of like a Halo meets whatever, kind of time manipulation kind of thing. Very cool movie, but you actually did a commercial in that, which was really awesome, so.
I did that gig, and it was a thing where you get a paragraph and you read it, and they go, oh, they're just going to book you, and they're just going to use the audition. Oh, okay, great. I'm at the movie theater. I go, hey, that's me.
I forgot.
And sometimes, you forget you do things until a check shows up in the mailbox. Oh, yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's funny.
Yeah. America.
Yeah, the opportunities just keep flowing. But that's really cool. I love that movie. I watched it a couple of times, and it was just a very unique spin. But I'm thinking, a lot of times, the reason I do my show, David, is to help introduce people to voiceover in aspects that are beyond voiceover. And, you mentioned commercials and promos and trailers. And, so it's kind of cool to see a commercial within a movie, because it's voiceover through an actual live action film, which is really unique, so.
There's a lot. It's funny. There's so many different opportunities and areas within voiceover that are available, to people. And there's another area too, which is trailer, which is the business of looping or ADR. So if an actor is not available, like I did a bunch of Liam Neeson stuff a while ago for.
Sweet.
What the hell was it for? It was just something for a trailer for something. And I didn't really know I could do a Liam Neeson, so they cast a net and they see who sounds like, and it's not just sounding like the actor or doing one of those funny accents. There are funny versions of the actor. You have to act the scene, so you have to be in the scene. Like if it's an intense scene, you have to be the character. You have to be him. You sound like him, but it's got to come off real.
Yeah.
And so I made a bit of a game of that, and there's certain characters they'll send me, and it's just like, no, I'm out. I'll just pass on it. But there's certain things that British characters or certain actors with a certain timbre. I did Woody Harrelson for a bunch of ADR work and looping in the last Apes film, and there was just I didn't even know I could do Woody Harrelson because I didn't even think he's anywhere near. And all of it, I sort of keyed on the word all of it, and he just kind of rolls his L's a bit or kind of swallows them. And there's certain. So I did this, this speech, and I ended up getting hired for that. So you don't know. The Liam Neeson is it's more closer to mine if you get it back in your throat. I don't know who you are, I don't know what you want, but it will find you, and it will kill you. Particular set of skills. Get off my plane. It was just sort of like it was sort of all, it was easy to get to that character. Anthony Hopkins I've done in stuff, and Patrick Stewart, his ADR, and it's just, they need to sort of place a word or two or a sentence or something, and they can, go find somebody who sounds like them, and they'll splice it in.
Let's hear a little Patrick Stewart. Just something brief.
Oh God, Patrick Stewart. Yes, I kind of did him for what's the X-Men Evolution.
Yeah.
That was yes. Storm. Where's Storm? Storm. Logan. Locate Storm. Come sit on Daddy's lap, Logan. I don't. But he's very, he's sort of, as he gets older, he's in here more of a little older English, and there's a bit of a waver in his voice. And I always like to do the, you shall not pass, the other, his brother, Charles Xavier. Yes. And so it's just, I don't know. I do a lot of listening and sort of listening to things and people, and I key on something, and for whatever reason, if it's in my area, I'll play around with it. But there's a lot of more people out there that are way better at stuff like that than I am, and brilliant. It's just that you catch a certain break on a certain character, and you get hired, and you kind of find a little bit of a niche. You don't really know unless you try.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the lesson of all this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of something else you did for a project, you may or may not remember, you played the Movietown newsreel announcer for the movie Up.
I'll never forget that. I made John Voight cry.
Did you?
I was at the premiere, and it was my first big Hollywood premiere. And
that's awesome.
John Voight was sitting behind us. And I'm doing that whole, Charles Munson's out there, dirigible, blah, 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 blah. He walks around Mount Everest. And that whole scene where it was so emotional that the people grew all together. And I hear this sort of sound behind me. Go, and I kind of turned around and looked behind to the left. And I went to my wife. I said, John Voight's crying.
Wow.
And that was, I got to hang out with Pete Docter and work with Peter and all the crew from Lassiter, and I made them a cake, from was he Swiss chocolatier is in Vancouver. He's brilliant, and my assistant at the time drove it across the border because it was the balloons. there's some pictures of it somewhere, but I presented them with this cake at the premiere at the Roosevelt Hotel, the pre-party, and they were all, thrilled with it. But it was just my way of thanking them for this opportunity. I mean, who would ever have thought, I'm going to be working with the folks at Pixar? I did a session up in Oakland, and at Pixar, which was it's Emeryville. And then I did a session down here near our neighborhood at Warner Brothers, and it was just phenomenal. The experience was incredible, But yeah, that was certainly a highlight.
It's an epic movie. It really is. I absolutely loved it. And the scene, like you said in the beginning, where the couple is growing up together and getting old together and getting married, it's just beautiful. It's like the most beautiful thing I think I've ever seen, because there's no speaking. It's just music and beautiful scenes. And you're like, how in the world? That is like the best part. I mean, like if they made a movie just like that with no talking, I think it could be phenomenal, especially if Pixar did it.
Yeah, it's all about emotion, evoking that emotion. They're so good at it. It's all about story with them. They develop things. They took me around campus and showed me the rendering room, the rendering farm, as they call the render farm. And we're outside and we're kind of looking at the campus and the expanse of the grounds. And there's an Olympic-sized swimming pool there on the grounds of Pixar. And, and the guy says, he said, well, the pool over there, I see, Ratatouille. I go, yeah, of course. Well, he said they put a guy in a rat suit and they had him jump in the pool, and they filmed him, and they were filming to watch how the water would fall off the fur so they could that's how, exactly want to get it. I said, wow. So they're very precise in story, and it was a thrill to see all that up there.
Wow, that is super amazing. I'm glad you dove into that a little bit, some behind the scenes on Pixar, because they are such a unique company, and I'm so glad that Disney acquired them and, back in the day. But they've just done some amazing works. I love their style of animation and the stories they tell, and they do just evoke such emotion out of their films. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, Disney owns me now. They bought me. So they're buying everything. They're gonna probably buy you after this. It's just gonna own it all.
Hey, I would be okay with that, I could just Disney approved,
That's right.
But that's amazing. Well, kind of getting into some video games you've done too, because it's another genre of voiceover. You've worked on Batman Arkham City as Commissioner Gordon, and you worked on the Clank and Ratchet games as Clank.
Yeah.
Which is super awesome.
15 years of that.
Can you believe that?
Hard to believe it. Yeah. The coolest thing, is I don't think they had a ton of money for promotion. We're up against some pretty big films, but I got my name on a poster with Paul Giamatti and Rosario Dawson and John Goodman and of course James Arnold Taylor. But to see my name on a movie poster was like, wow. I mean, hey, the movie didn't do that great, but I'm thinking, I got my name on a poster. I've made it, Hollywood. La la la. But it was so much fun to do, and I'm really glad we did it. And so much to jam into a film, that whole universe,
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that one day we'll get another crack at something, or who knows. But it's been so much fun working for them and Insomniac and that character. There's an example of. You just never know where things are going to go, and you get sent. I was literally sent a paragraph. There was no pictures or anything. It was a paragraph. The description was maybe a sentence long. They wanted him to sound not robotic, but more of a personality, more of a person, but less, not the robot we're used to seeing, or hearing, but something different. So I just sort of kind of again started this whole thing here. I just made my head move back and forth and do this. Yes, Ratchet, of course. We must find Captain Core quickly. Oh, dear. And I came up with this laugh in the session. And I said, well, how would he laugh? And we're trying to figure that out. And I kind of did a Scooby, like, they said, well, try, what would that be like with Clank? And I went, I don't know. I'm like, and that's it. That's the laugh. So that became the laugh. And 15 years later, and hopefully, one day we'll do some more stuff, because it was such a fun franchise. The Arkham thing was so cool. I'd almost all but given up being anything involved with Batman. I was so always wanted to be, because he was one of my favorite heroes as a kid growing up, was the Batman.
Me too.
And I kind of given up on stuff, but I knew I had a good Commissioner Gordon, and I gave it my best shot, and they brought me in for that on that game, and it was a thrill. To be involved with that, yeah.
Well, Commissioner Gordon's one of my absolute favorite characters in any project that he's ever been brought to, because he's just an integral part, and the way they've built his relationship up through the animations and the video games, he just has such an integral relationship with Batman, and he's always been one of my absolute favorite characters because he's just a hard kick butt chief commissioner, like he's just very cool. And, your voice on that game was just very booming and epic. And, Gordon is just a cool character, period. So.
Oh, good. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I have a question. Do you happen to know Mr. Zircon, Mr. Mark Grau?
Sure. I know Mark. I know Mark quite well. He's, I drive by his studio almost every day. Mark Grau, voiceovers. It's there on Burbank Boulevard. Is it Burbank or Magnolia? It is Burbank, yeah.
I think it is Burbank.
Oh, yeah, of course. We recorded the, what do you call those things? For the Transformers animated series was Marty Eisenberg, myself, Matt Youngberg, and who else was in there? Derek Wyatt, and who else from the cast? When they do those they record the stuff for the video release on DVD. They do what's that called? When you go in and talk about, you're watching the film and you comment about
like the
what's
commentary?
Going on. The commentary.
Yeah.
We did all that over at Mark's studio.
That's awesome.
And he's got some pretty amazing pictures over there of the people he's worked with over the years that have come in and out of that studio. So.
Well, Mark was on my show a while back, so that was really cool. I wondered if I figured you knew him, but so.
Yeah, we're all in the same hood. We're all in the same area. We see each other all the time and at various different events. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, you kind of mentioned, and we kind of got to hear a little bit of Professor X. And I know you played Professor X and Apocalypse on X-Men Evolution. Great series, great franchise. Kind of got to see the X-Men coming from a younger perspective, a newer perspective. And you got to work with some amazing people on that. In fact, was Scott McNeil, wasn't he Wolverine on that? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing cast, and it was kind of a mixture of U.S. and Canadian talent, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so, as far as I know. Was it?
I think it was.
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I can't remember where everybody was from. We did such a fun. It was such a fun time. It was such fun doing that show. I wish we had the outtakes from that. Because I don't know if they're floating around somewhere, but they're
pretty funny times, huh?
Yeah,
it was awesome. Well, we're going to dive into a couple more characters and we'll wrap this up before you know it. Right. You played Jarvis and Vision and Baron Zemo on Avengers Assemble. Absolutely love that
Zemo,
series.
yes. And I've got to say, I met my hero, Mr. Stan Lee, last week, along with Mark Hamill.
Oh my gosh!
I can't. So I can tell you that there is a picture. I'm going to post it soon. But we had just a quick story. I had a barbecue, we had some homemade pizzas and some stuff, and had some of the Marvel folks over. We hung out. It was really a neat night. And I'd mentioned, I said, I played all these different characters in the Marvel universe, and even a stint as Iron Man there way back, and. I said, I've never met Stan. Everybody I go to, I met Stan Lee twice. So I saw Stan. Well, great. I'm the only one in the whole universe that's never met Stan Lee. Great, excellent. And so 2 weeks ago, it was an Avengers record, and I was brought in, and I got there, and Harrison Wilcox, one of the head writers there at Marvel and animation. So remember, he told you you never met Stan Lee before, and I go, is he here? He said, yeah, he's in the booth recording with Mark Hamill. Oh my God. So Luke Skywalker is in there with Stan Lee. And it was so great because we got in and he's nice to meet you. Where are you from? I live here in Toluca Lake. That's wonderful. So you're Baron Zemo. Give me a little Baron Zemo. And I did this. Yes, well, this whole thing in here, Baron, whatever I did, I can't remember what I said. And he goes, very good, very good. So I don't know if he was just joking with me or not, but I thought it was all right. It wasn't fantastic, but he was so sweet. And we all got our picture taken that day. It was Roger Craig Smith was there, and Mark and myself, and Trevor Duvall, who is so freaking talented. Who else was there? And some of the other writers. So and Colette Sunderman, who's voice directing on Avengers. And so what a day. I mean that day it couldn't have been topped. Hamill, I know Mark, but it was kind of neat to have him, and it was actually Mark's birthday, and so we brought in a cake for him.
I wished him happy birthday. Okay, wow, okay, yeah, that wasn't long ago at all. So
no, not at all. So we all sang, and We ate this horribly evil cake, which was so good. But yeah, I mean, that's those kind of days happen, and you kind of have to pinch yourself to think that you're part of that. So I'm just so honored to be anywhere near this stuff. Trust me, it's just amazing.
What an epic day, Mark Hamill
pretty
and
much.
Stan Lee.
Pretty much.
Wow, man. And you sounded like a little kid there. I'm sure you were like going back in your head like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I got in my car and go, oh, I sounded so stupid. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I say that? Oh, I'm like an idiot. I pulled a Chris Farley, I was like, oh, darn it. Such an idiot. But it was neat.
Wow. Well, the last show that we're going to talk about today, because there are tons more we could talk about, David, is Ben 10. And we're going to start with Ben 10 Omniverse. You played Cannonbolt, Heat Blast. Absolutely love Heat Blast. Swamp Fire, and a ton more characters on that show. But more recently, in 2016, you started playing Grandpa Max and a bunch of other characters for that show, too.
Yes, Grandpa Max. It's my first Grandpa role. Ben. The van is a mess, Ben. It's just, it's scary because it's my first grandpa role.
You're like, oh no, I've gone there.
Oh dear, here we go. I mean, we all know the incredibly talented, wonderful human being, Paul Eiding, who's just, you can't get much nicer of a human being than Paul. As an actor, you're like, oh, first of all, you're like, hey, I'm Grandpa. Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. But that's the nature of the beast, that's the nature of the business. Yeah. And I just felt uncomfortable about it. But at the same time, very honored that Steve Siegel and the Men of Action folks, give me a chance to play an iconic character. And it's been fun. I mean, we record Monday mornings. I mean, usually on a Monday morning, you're like, oh, God, Monday. But at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're in there goofing around and having fun and doing a show. So it's what a way to start a week.
No kidding. I mean, I've always loved Ben 10. I started watching it when the first series initially came out, and I really loved it. And I've even talked with a few people who've been on other Marvel shows and stuff and said, there could be some kind of connection between like Apocalypse someday and like, Vilgax is his like brother or cousin or something. And then they make Ben 10 part of that like, Marvel crossover universe or something, because there's so much, outer space stuff now with Marvel that they've been crossing in through the feature films and animations and stuff that I was like, man, that could totally be brought into that universe, or at least partnered in comics or something, because I just see so many opportunities and possibilities. And Ben 10 is a franchise that is amazing, and I'm glad that it's continued to be reinvented and brought back multiple times, because it's just it's a wonderful franchise. That's for sure.
That'll be the first story we'll hear on Monday morning. Dateline Hollywood. Disney and Marvel have purchased Ben 10.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah. That's right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm surprised we haven't seen Luke Skywalker in the Avengers yet, but we'll see.
Oh no, you never know. You never know. You never know, man.
But well, as we wrap up here, I just want to ask your advice, David. If somebody is listening to the show and they're an enthusiast about voiceover and they want to be an enthusiast so much so they want to join this awesome world of acting, what kind of advice would you give to a young person or a person of any age who's looking at potentially getting into acting, and more specifically the niche of voiceover?
Yeah, I begin with saying I wouldn't want to get into it now personally. When I got into it, the internet was just starting to come online, and it was used as I was one of the first ones to use it as a tool. I remember starting with reel-to-reel machines, trying to make reel-to-reel tapes and trying to make FedEx, 4 o'clock in the afternoon every day, trying to get the audio out. Now the technology's changed, and it's much easier. I have road gear that I take with me. I mean, I do take vacations, but I usually take my gear with me. And funny enough, I'm busier on vacation and get some sweet gig every time I go away. My agent's now saying, "Go away, go somewhere, book a flight." So you can do this anywhere. Now I have a professionally built studio at the house, and a lot of my cohorts do. Just sounds better. And if you have sessions that are coming commercially or promo or iStand or trailer, they want a professional sounding, place. I don't want to hear anything else. It's got to be, it's got to be the professional sound we're looking for. There's wasn't existing when I was getting into it. There's a whole plethora of things you can do to advance your career or learn about it. There is a big voiceover weekend. There's like weekend workshops and conferences now. I mean, I never knew that even existed. Atlanta has one. There's one coming up I'm speaking at. Gosh, I got to write something. Good Lord. I'm nervous again. It's here at the Sportsman's Lodge. And who's the person that's responsible for that and puts it on is Randy Thomas. Now, Randy, of course, is the voice of the Emmy. She was the former voice of Entertainment Tonight. She does the Kennedy Center honors, and she's a neighbor and a very close friend. I love her. And she puts on this thing called Voices. Oh, my God, she's going to kill me. Just Google Randy Thomas, Thomas, and she does there's a whole weekend coming up in November at the Sportsman's Lodge here in Studio City. And it's for the professional to the novice. And these weekends are great because they expose you to this whole world. And this wasn't around, like I said earlier, when I was getting into it. I was like fly by the seat of my pants. That's my Facebook post. I basically I'm still flying by the seat of my pants most of the time. There's also my tech, George Whittam, Whittam. George Whittam is an amazing a guy. And he just is it voiceover labs, VO labs, and they do a podcast every Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, I believe. And it's the business of the tech side of it. Like if you're interested in getting set up, what do you need? How much do you need to spend? George Whittam and company can tell you all about that. So there's tons of resources out there. Those two I recommend. You can come into town if you live outside of Los Angeles area. There's tons of voiceover workshops and classes and things. There's improv, which I've started getting into more so with the UCB being the Upright Citizens Brigade, which was started by Matt Besser, Matt Walsh, and Amy Poehler and that company back in New York. And they have like a campus here. There's a theater, and there's a campus and a theater on Sunset. And that stuff is invaluable. Daniel Ross, I saw him he was in another class, another voice actor and friend of mine. Because you live in this area, it's all available to you. So why wouldn't you, look at it? There's the Groundlings Theater. So any of that stuff, if you're interested in it, you need to expose yourself to all this stuff. And there's tons of resources and no excuse, not to learn how to do it properly. The issue I have as a performer, as a voice, someone who's come up from nothing and still a little more than nothing now, but I still have a long way to go. There's people I'm still learning from.
Yeah.
There's when you're standing in front of a painting like a Van Gogh or a Matisse or a Masters or some brilliant, you're over in Europe and you're looking at something, you go, oh my God, how the hell did they do that? How am I looking at it? Like the Hieronymus Bosch painting we saw in Madrid. And you go, my God, so you look at that and you think, well, that's excellence. That's just the height of excellence.
Yeah.
So in a day and an age where you can put on two stick figures farting for 8 minutes on YouTube and have 8 million hits. Now, is that excellent? Is that great? Well, to some people, it's great.
Yeah.
But where's the benchmark? So I implore people to listen to those who are doing it and see what it is that they have. What makes them great? What is it that makes them great? Are they just saying a line, or are they living the line, or is there life in it, or is there a character in it? And Mart Hamill I'm going to give him as an example. When I were doing regular show, we did regular show, and I was in from time to time as a character on that, the big baby with a diaper, Reginald. But he wouldn't just say the line. I mean, he gets all this other stuff going on. You can hear how heavy he is. You can hear how much pain he is. You can hear the thought process, and it's all from using your voice. Any actor can act a scene, but to do it in front of a microphone where there's no camera and you have to emote something, there's a skill, and it just comes with doing it and understanding it. So there's all kinds of stuff out there that you can look into and do in workshops and things. If you really want to do this, do those first.
Yeah. Find
out what it is you need. Find out your niche. Find out people who have the same sort of interests as you. It's always fun to be around people who have the same interests. It's cool. They feed off each other, and that energy and that the love for the craft, and it sort of starts there. I don't think there's any age. I think they're always looking for new people. There's lots of work to go around. There's tons with the new channels and universes and different things and new games, and of course the VR stuff is coming online too. So you're looking, you have to be a great actor, and you have to act and move around, and you also use your voice. So the opportunities are there. It's just everyone has a great voice. It's just a matter of how you use it. So if that's a roundabout way of answering your question, I think I've succeeded in confusing everyone. But that's my sort of take on it.
It's good. It's solid, But you mentioned Daniel Ross. Daniel was one of my very first guests on the show, and we talked about his role as Starscream from Transformers back when he worked on the video game for the original movie. So that's really cool. We seem to know a lot of people, and I know as I've done this show, the people that I've had on the show, the connections between them have started to kind of cross lines, and it's been nice to kind of do that because it helps my show grow and it helps different connections come over, kind of like when I had Gary Chalk on the show and Ian James Corlett, who were both on
Gary,
B-Stores.
Pull my finger. Hey, pull my finger. Corlett, pull my finger. My imitation of Gary.
Yeah, well, they were both on Transformers B-Stores with you. Great guys. But, it's just really cool to have you on the show today, David. I have one last question, and we will wrap this interview up. And the question is, what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Oh, boy. I knew I was going to be asked that question at some point. Gee, that's a tough one. He was a great guy, fun to be around, and he was a solid character and kind to everyone. And aside from any work that I do, it's just that I was a good person, and that's what my father has instilled in me. He's, everyone loves my dad, and I would prefer to be liked. We all like to be liked, and that I wasn't an asshole to work with. No, just I always maintain from the very start, I just want to I got to find something that lets me have fun every day. If I can look forward to Monday, then that's the trick. Try and tell that to my kids. Look forward to Monday. If you can look forward to Monday mornings, then you got something.
Yeah.
And like I have a little sign in my studio also that says, you have to be odd to be number one.
Absolutely. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
That's right.
I love it. That's great. I think it's a wonderful legacy, David. And I can't thank you enough for the time to talk about all these amazing shows. And I definitely would love to have you back on this show again sometime soon.
Absolutely, man. Sure.
Well, David, if you would, please, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show. Would you please close us out as Megatron from Beast Wars?
Ah, Trenton Larkin, what a pleasant surprise. But it shall avail you not. No. Side guns. Megatron, out. Have a nice day, everyone.
Well, everyone, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with David Kaye, the voice of Megatron from Beast Wars. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. A question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Friday for our next special guest, Fred Freeze, son of Paul Freeze, the voice of the Haunted Mansion. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they've voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.